Yo, welcome to This Can't Be Adulting, the podcast where two guys who probably should have it all figured out absolutely don't.
Careers, money, relationships. No one handed us a manual, so we're figuring it out the only way we know how, with real talk, deep dives, and a whole lot of laughs.
I'm Herb.
And I'm Derek. And if you're out here wondering, am I doing this right? Trust us, you're not alone.
So hit play, relax, and let's figure this out together.
Yo, what it do? What it do? Welcome back to the This Can't Be Adultin podcast. Herb, how we doing, man?
Man, episode 5.
Episode 5. We said we were going to do this last episode.
That's true.
We said we're going to start counting every episode.
Episode 5. Here we go.
Hopefully we get to episode 1,000 and then everybody gets a prize. Everybody gets a gift. Everybody gets a gift.
Man, we can make that far. I'm sure we might be able to hand some stuff out.
All 12 of our listeners, dog.
Hey, but we appreciate you all.
Absolutely.
Keep liking. Please keep leaving the comments. We definitely appreciate all the feedback. I think from the last episode we talked about, we definitely going to be working on the backdrop a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get there. Like we said, low budget still, low budget. So we hanging out here. But Herb, how you been since our last talk, man? Good.
I will, say everybody out there, hope you was able to celebrate Mother's Day with your loved ones yesterday. I know something that's as I mentioned, I come from a big family, and my mom's my favorite person in the world. So, Mom, shout out. Glad I was able to spend Mother's Day with you. Love her forever.
What, better son than I am. Mom's. Fun in Rhode Island, dog. I heard you had a good time. Didn't even send you a gift. That's my bad, dog. You know what? That is actually a good point because we need to do an episode on family.
Yeah.
And just, obviously, we've touched a lot on family because a lot of what we talk about is our own experiences and our family.
Yes.
Our childhood is a big experience, but I'd love to do an episode on our relationship with our family and obviously revealing what we want to reveal.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we aim to do here on This Can't Be Adultin podcast and why we think we differentiate ourselves is that we want to be genuine and authentic about our experiences, despite what society might think or whatever the case is. And I think it makes us unique. So I think that'd be a cool episode to do.
Absolutely. We look forward to that.
Right on the fly. We weren't even planning to talk about that, but that's what it is. Right? But we do have a fun-filled, let me say, fun might not be the word, but it might be for some people. But it is a very interesting episode today.
Yep.
And the reason for this is because what we're going to talk about today is dating.
Oh, boy.
And relationships.
Ooh, you hear that? And we have our mascot back with us today. Choco, want to turn around?
Her and I were dating for a while. Apparently, she's into Herb. So there
Choco,
it is.
No way. Oh, the kids. Thank you. All right, I'm going to back you up a little.
Yeah, you need to lay down, Mom. You need to sit down. She's like, I want to be part of this podcast. And so this could be a touchy subject, and this will be an interesting one because we have men and women that listen to our podcast, friends and foes. Not foes. We got no foes. We all love you. Sorry. I said men and women. Foes just naturally
friends
came out.
And family.
Friends and family listening. But we figured this could be a good episode for us to talk about a couple of things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Dating today versus how it was when you and I were growing up. And
shout out to the pager.
Shout out to the pager. Yo, I got to get to a phone. Right. And just what we've witnessed in terms of the evolution of what dating has gone like. And not only necessarily from our own experience, but just from what we see in the world. I know you have younger cousins who date in a certain way and who think a certain way. And just we want to kind of lay that all on the table. We're also going to talk a little bit about what we believe is required in today's society. Maybe not required, but like what society has told us is appropriate, for lack of a better word, with regards to being in a relationship or not.
Yeah.
And so we'll delve a little bit into that and talk about some of our relationships that we may have been in and what we learned and whatnot, and what our takes are on what relationships in general, what we might want or look for or find that we've learned and changed our opinions on.
Yeah,
from back
what's
then.
valuable in a relationship.
What's valuable, yeah. And so we'll obviously touch on that. So that's where we're going to stay in the lane of. We'll talk a little bit about all that, so it'll be really interesting. So I think a good place for us to start, I always like starting by kicking it off to my boy Herb. Herb's is always a good introductioner person. I'm just making up fucking words right now. But let's start off with dating today versus when we grew up.
Yeah. So
how do you want to take that?
Do we want to talk about, all right, Do we
I
wanna
want to
start
talk
off
about
talking
what you want to talk about.
All right, cool. So I'll start by like just going and just kind of give you what I look at as far as the evolution of how it's evolved as far as dating when I first started, to come of age and start to look at the opposite sex and started wanting to like date, girls. I was probably say around 12,
12.
13, around that age, I would say. Still hadn't hit puberty yet, yo. The boy was a late groomer or late bloomer over here, bro. I didn't hit puberty until I was like 15. I was like 5'2", 92 pounds out here.
Hold on. I'm still laughing because he said late groomer, and I'm like, he probably a late groomer.
That too.
Oh, shit.
No, but like so, yeah. But starting out dating, like I feel like one of the biggest things I feel that has changed, obviously, is with society, social media, and everything. It's just a pool. Like I'm from a small town, Arkansas, so like really didn't have like a large, pool to date from per se, just because of it's not like growing up in New York City or somewhere. Like the state of Arkansas, I think has like 2 million people. I think New York City has something like
2 million. It's
like,
barely bigger than the state of Rhode Island, and we tiny.
Exactly. So
we
you
got
y'all
1.2 million people.
So
That's
we got
crazy.
2 million people spread out. Like Arkansas is not a small state, as far as like
Area wise,
not a small state. So
square mileage.
It's a lot of it wasn't not that I had access to, as far as growing up. So I think the biggest thing I've seen today is just that you have access to one of my friends and I, we always joke about, like, man, could you imagine if we had social media when we grew up? Because like, seeing people from other schools was few and far between, and you definitely had no time to like set anything up. Like we would go to track meets, and you're at a track meet, you're there from noon until like 9 p.m. And it's very limited adult supervision there. So I mean, yeah, you would talk to girls at track meets, but just imagine if you had the time to like set something up. So I think the biggest thing I would say starting out is just the access with social media has allowed for a larger pool and an easier way to communicate. Like back in the day when I was growing up, like it was the pager was the first thing.
Right.
I grew up when you had to like page someone.
Yeah.
And that was, if anybody's had a pager or a beeper, or whatever you called it, in your area, that was the first thing. And I trust you, the boy wasn't getting that many pages either, but I had it. I had the pager. And then I remember when I got about 15, the next thing was, this is back, everybody had a landline. Like you had to call somebody's house to get them on the phone, which is like, hey, don't call before. Nah, my dad answers, just hang up. that type of thing that was dealing with as growing up. But the second thing that evolved as far as me when I came to dating was I got my own phone number. So like growing up, the boy had his own number, 851-1095. 501-851-1095. That was the number.
Sounded like Mike Jones.
Yeah, right.
Call Mike Jones on the
low. So then I had my own phone, so now I could like call people whenever I wanted. Nobody was calling like the house number. They was calling.
And how old were you? How old are you?
At this one, I was probably about 14. I think I got it for Christmas when I was 14.
Bad. You had your own line at 14.
Online, 14.
Damn, bro. You was living like a king.
Yeah, this was back in 1999.
Yeah, bro.
99. My boy was 99. That's crazy to even think. It's almost like, it was the last century.
Yeah.
But it feel that long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got my own phone number. Was the next, like, I feel like evolution. And then a year after that, I did get a cell phone, which I still have the same number that I had.
15.
At 15, I got my first cell phone, a Cricket. Shout out to Cricket. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Got a little Cricket, and then probably like a few months after that, I moved up to a Sprint phone, and then I had the same phone number since then. But yeah, that was kind of like the evolution, I would say. I'll stop there, and that kind of got me to college. It went from like the pager to my own phone number. And then I got a cell phone, and then that kind of got me to.
So are you saying those different types of communications that you were able to have access to now changed your game, literally? Not changed the game, but changed how you dated? Or was that just an evolution of you getting older that changed how you dated?
I think this changed in the form of the way we communicated. Mm-hmm. Like, when I came through, the only way you could spit game to a girl, you had to talk to her. Like, you literally had to use the words to come out of your mouth.
Yep.
That was the only way that you can get it. Now, I wrote a lot of letters. I was a big, I was writing letters. I even wrote letters all the way through high school.
112, yo. 112 over here, bro.
Yeah.
Call 112, bro.
112 fan, too.
Yeah.
112 fan.
112, one of the best R&B groups growing up. I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, there was a lot of girls in Mayflower, Arkansas that probably know about 112 through in the early 2000s. But anyways, no, so I think that changed just because the only way you could talk to a girl was your game was to use your mouth. Now then it evolved to where text messaging, which makes it a completely different conversation, and it gives you you have a different type of conversation, when you're speaking to someone as opposed to texting with them. So I think it just had to evolve to where, like, all right, I done got from speaking to someone, now I have to develop this communication skill of like texting someone. And I think that was kind of the biggest, I would say those are the two big things I would say evolved, was just it had to go from communicating, verbally, to now we're communicating like written more so.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing where we've evolved or devolved to? Because I've got my thoughts and opinions, but I want to hear what you're thinking.
All right, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I think, and this is not a very good this is not a very good answer. I would probably, to help you with it, it's a balance. I think there's a good, healthy, as in life, moderation, life in moderation. I think there's a healthy balance. What would you say?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some good that's come out of it for certain groups of people. I think a lot of it is not great. And so I'll touch on it now. Okay, so yes, back in the day, even as little as 10, 15 years ago, you were forced to go out and meet people.
Yes.
And actually talk to people and interact with people. Human beings are meant to have human connection.
Agreed.
I think, unfortunately, where we've devolved now is that these big tech companies have come over and they've told you, no, here's an easy button. You don't need to leave your couch to meet somebody. Yeah. You just swipe, text, and talk, whatever. And then 2 weeks later, if you want to meet up with them, you can meet up with them.
Yep.
Now, why do I think that's a bad thing? Well, A, it promotes laziness, but people start losing their human interaction skills, their human social skills. I think that's the reason for a lot of anxiety that a lot of people have. And I can 1000% say this with certainty because it's happened to me over the past 5 years. And I didn't notice it happened to me over the past 5 years, but when COVID hit, we all got so secluded that the only thing you could do was get on dating apps and do all that stuff. Right. And so it was a super easy thing. And having come out on the other side, having been in a couple of relationships since then, all that I've met on dating apps, by the way. My last 3 relationships have been through dating apps. But I've realized that, like, my ability to talk to women, like in person, has literally gone, and my confidence level has gone. And mind you, I said this in the beginning. Part of the reason why I want to do a podcast, because me and her are conversationalists. So it's not like I can't talk. Yeah, like I know how to talk, but like when you don't have that face-to-face contact and you're not constantly gritting your teeth in a sense, or cutting your teeth was what they say. Yep. And having those interactions and know how to read body language and know how to do all that, you lose that. You can lose that. Now, Absolutely. You can always get it back up. Don't get me wrong. But I had, for a while, I'd been relying on just this, like these phones and shit. So, and that's me being able to say that because I know that I can talk to women. Yes. Or just talk to people in general. Because this also is a broader umbrella type of a thing. Absolutely. So at least I have that memory. But if you're talking about kids who have never had to do that, coming up now, who all they've had to do is like, I'm going to hit you up on Instagram. I'm going to freaking text you, or I'm going to put you on this dating app. Like, they got no human skills. They don't know how to talk to a girl. Girls don't know how to talk to boys. And it's just like this weird kind of a position where from that perspective. Now, I'm going to pause there and get your feedback. But remind me, I want to talk about some of the positives that I think have come from it.
Okay. Feedback on that, I would say, is like the kids nowadays, I think the benefits that we had, and it going out and having to actually speak with someone is really, it just taught you how to deal with rejection.
Yes, correct.
And so much of life boils down to dealing with rejection. And when you had to go out there and take rejection face on the chin, a girl will just tell you, nah, curve you, whatever it be. You say something stupid, she like, nah, like, or you say something right and it goes like, I guess that wouldn't be rejection. But anyway, like you're just dealing with rejection, like you had to like be able to process that in the moment.
Yeah.
And act accordingly.
Right.
Now, some people didn't necessarily always act, people don't always act accordingly. Like you've seen guys like, get rejected and they spaz off at a girl or vice versa.
Right.
But I think that was the biggest thing that the kids these days miss, is that they don't have to deal with rejection face on, and they get to hide behind, a screen. And that is probably the biggest detriment I could see to this, is that, not only are you, running from rejection when it comes to relationship, because that's one of the hardest things, I would say I don't want to say the hardest thing, but that's one of the more valuable things as a humans that we are able to do is create this connection with another person and grow it to be love and stuff. So I think that the kids like just not being able to deal with rejection, don't or not having to deal with rejection face on is the biggest detriment I can see
100%.
for that.
I think you're spot on. And by the way, this is not a shot at kids because this isn't kids' fault. Like, I don't want to put this blame on kids. Kids are kids.
Yeah,
kids,
they didn't create that.
You only know they didn't create this environment. This was created by adults.
Yeah,
by adults who want to create these safe spaces for kids and be helicopter parents and shit. And it's like, this is a better way. It's a safer way. And I do think it's been very detrimental from that perspective. Because to your point, like if you can't deal with that, that's the first level of rejection you're probably going to start getting as a kid.
Very
like
true.
major, like one-on-one type of a thing. And that helps build you up for the rejection you're going to get later on in jobs, careers, like whatever you want to call it. And it's so helpful and instrumental to your growth as a human being. So I think it's stunting a lot of kids' growth right now, the way that dating is today, where you don't really have to be face-to-face until you have to be face-to-face. But I've also seen a lot of like younger kids on dates that they're both there on their phones and not even talking to each other.
Crazy to me.
Like, this shit is wild. Like, this shit is wild. So again, it's not a critique of kids or the younger generation. It really isn't, because they're not the ones that created this. Unfortunately, they're just growing up on this, and this is all you know. Just like we grew up on something completely different, and that's all we knew.
True.
So this isn't a critique on them. Now, where I do think there is a bit of a positive and a benefit, I think it can benefit women in a certain way because it does give them a greater pool of men.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sound too much like a feminist here, like too crazy of a feminist, but like the reality is that there's a good amount of guys that just are kind of trash. And when I say trash, I also say in a sense of men who haven't been taught better and grew up in certain conditions that didn't allow them to understand how to act properly, per se, is what I mean from that perspective. I think to your point, in your community, like, well, there was 2 million of us. There was a small pool, so the girls were forced to choose somebody there. Now, in this perspective, now the pool's grown bigger.
Exactly.
And maybe there's a level of safety that they might feel by communicating with somebody via a dating app first, via a thing, as opposed to just in person. Like, I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a bit of a benefit there, too. I still think the negatives outweigh it, too, because I also think that's had a negative effect on men as well. And which is an interesting thing, because I do think a lot of men, unfortunately, this has been exploited by some people in the media today and social media, like the Andrew Tates of the world and all that stuff, where they're telling these young boys that, you know, the top echelon of women, or all women, are choosing only from the top 20% of men. And if you're not in the top 20% of men, you're never going to get chosen. And it's teaching these young kids to hate women.
Yes.
And it's crazy. And now these kids are feeling anxious and lonely. These boys, because like, I'm never going to be able to get a girl because they're all just have all these high standards, and which isn't necessarily true. But like, there's all this thing that's come from all this, the way dating is now, and the way it's all online, and the things you hear online and things you hear on social media. It's wild. Whereas if we kind of just went, I don't want to say went back to the old days because that sounds terrible, but where we went to a place where we're teaching our young men and women how to respect each other,
Agreed.
but be able to speak to each other in person, I feel like we'd be just in a much better place.
I agree with you, because I feel like, as someone who has a lot of younger family members, cousins, nieces, they're kind of navigating this whole dating thing, and just kind of like even speaking with them and hearing how they view each other or the opposite sex is crazy to me. Like, I've come to this, this theory or this philosophy that the younger generation, they just don't like each other.
That's
it's
crazy.
so weird to me that they're hell bent on proving that the other side, they created like the ops. It's like they're enemies now, and it's like I don't think it used to didn't be that way. It was all based on trying to pair up and trying to have relationships, where now it's almost like trying to prove that you're you're the top echelon and you're the highest one. You're going to control in this relationship. Or if it's like, for instance, with the Andrew Tates of the world, and they're like, really downgrading women and talking about how they only date only specific type of guys. That sucks teaching the young men to villainize the women. And then you also, on the flip side, you look at some of these podcasts, and I have relatives who watch way too many of these, where it's the women talking about they're only going to date a certain type of guy. And, it's always, the height, but it really comes down to like the finances. He got to be doing this. He got to make, six figures, blah, blah, blah. And like, even hearing my relatives talk about this, I'm like, you guys are like in your young 20s. You're not going to be meeting people that are going to be highly successful in their careers no more than you are in your career. So how do you feel like you deserve this? It's almost like this. You deserve this just because you think highly of yourself, and that's great. You should think highly of yourself, but it also a reality of the world is that like everybody's not going to think that of you, and you still have to go out there and be a good person. And I just feel like right now it's just for whatever reason we in this culture where we really are just villainizing like the opposite, whoever we deem to be the opposites, the ops, and that's just created a very unhealthy dating culture and a very unhealthy, I feel like, relationship between just the youth, whether it's the young men or the young women, regardless of your sexuality. I'm not even getting into the sexuality. I'm just talking about just on the basis of liking and respecting each other. I feel like that has been deteriorated from when you and I grew up.
That's super insightful, because I actually wasn't thinking of it that way, because I don't have younger cousins, younger family members like that to that extent. So I appreciate you bringing that perspective, because what I was hearing from that is through the villainization, they each villainize each other and they create a monster out of each other. Because on the one hand, let's call it women or whatever you're looking at. I think predominantly in this, women, you have women saying, I'm only going to date this type of man that makes this much money, blah, blah, blah. So then what's the message that you deliver to men or boys? I've got to go make this money. Yep. I've got to go do this, and that's the only way I'm valuable. And when you do that, you turn this man into someone that thinks he's better than other men and deserves more than other men. And that's when you get the assholes. That's when you get the Andrew Tates of the world. Yeah. That's when you get those motherfuckers that are like, oh, I am valuable because of my money. If you don't got money, you ain't shit. And it's just, and it's this whole monster thing, when in reality, to your point, it needs to come down to, are you just a good person? Just be a good person. Do you respect me as a human being? If you're a woman, does this man respect the woman? Does a woman respect the man? Yep. And I do think we lose a lot of that because social media, man, throws it out there that it's about status, that it's about this, that for men it might be about status, that for women it might be about just looks and like and this and this and this is crazy thing. The one thing that I'm not gonna say I'm gonna push back on, but the one thing where I'm very cognizant of is this is a man's world, that a lot of the social norms have been created by men. Okay. In reality, dating back from the beginning, because we live in a very patriarch society. Agreed. And in a lot of instances, a very misogynistic society. And so I think women's reaction now is the pendulum has been all the way over here, and now it's swinging all the way over here. So my point is when you have women going, no, you know what? Like, fuck that. I want a man who's making X, Y, Z. If you asking all this of me, and I need to look a certain way, and women have been treated a certain way or told a certain way, now we have power, some power. This is how we're going to fight back. I'm not saying it's right. Yeah. I'm not saying it's right because two wrongs don't make a right. But what I am saying is that there is a reason why there's this backlash, because again, the pendulum analogy, when the pendulum is all the way here and it swings back, it's going to go all the way the other way until it balances and evens itself out. So again, not saying that it's right, but I do understand why it's happening. What are your thoughts on that?
And I don't want to speak for women here. I obviously don't want to speak for any women here, but I also feel like that's a good thing. That should be women getting, the ability to climb the corporate ladder, having these, these ceilings, these barriers, broken down and busting through these barriers. That's a good thing. That's positive. Great especially thing. As minorities, we know it's we understand what the challenges that could be, in front of us that systematically don't apply to everyone. So that's a good thing. We're always going to want to support, anyone getting, progressing. That said, I also feel like I don't want to speak for. I also think there needs to be a understanding of like the importance, and I think this we will get into, in our next topic, is like the importance of having someone, how valuable that can be, how much more you can accomplish in life as a team compared to as an individual. And not even that. I think it's just more in life. You attract more flies with honey than salt, or with sugar than salt, or however the saying goes. Basically, being a kind person, you attract more people than if you were like a vinegar or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that it's also important that regardless of how you're progressing, that you still try to remain rooted in being quote unquote a good person. I think that would be great.
Both men and women, right?
Both.
Men and women, for sure.
But as I was speaking, like as women get more, ability, they can become more independent. And basically, we're saying by independent, we talk about financial independent, because that's where the control all lie. In the past was that, hell, if the woman's not working and the man's doing all the work and he's supporting, he's paying all the bills, how can she leave?
Yeah.
Like, what could she, like, if
Well,
she got
that's what
into
it
a
was.
situation?
You do know that in the 50s, like, you weren't allowed to have a credit card unless you were a man.
Is that and that's it's a reason why.
Crazy.
Control. Like, I want you to stay your ass at home.
Men,
like
men controlled everything, right? So now we're in a different place. And look, and I agree with you. I think, obviously, from all perspectives, kindness is always the way to go. But all I'm saying, and I'm not even arguing, but all I'm saying is that I understand why there could be such a backlash from women who are a marginalized community. Again, doesn't make it right, but I understand why it's happening, or why it could be happening. And it's unfortunate. And I think it's the responsibility of mostly men to try to not work with that in the sense of like accept it, but like how do we bring it back to make women feel like we're not all fucking a bunch of assholes and controlling and shit like that.
Let me ask you this, for when because a lot of this independence and women, comes from the financial aspect. Have you dated women that, like, what was the financial you say of the women that you've dated, or the relationships you've had in the past? Like, were they at the same level as you, above you, under you? Like, kind of what is your
so my last ex made a lot more than me.
Did that make you feel any type of different way?
No.
Okay.
I don't care.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I contributed to the relationship either way. For the most part, like at the very least, in every relationship I've been in, there's been both have been working really hard at a job that they were good at and a career that they were good at.
Yeah.
Despite on who was making more, whatever the case is, because I had my career, but I do know my last ex was making a lot more than me. Super successful from that perspective. That doesn't bother me personally, because I don't think any of that has to do with masculinity or any of that shit. Like I don't subscribe to those old time things. Like I got to make more than my woman, or I'm gonna feel emasculated if I don't. Like nah, I'm good with that. Like if you make more, good. You are killing it, and you are happy, well. And you do, and you obviously don't belittle me because of it. Obviously,
I ain't gonna listen to that.
I wouldn't be with someone that's gonna belittle me anyways. But like, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
100% all for it.
Okay. Now I will say is somebody I've dated girls who made a lot more than me. Mm-hmm. I've dated girls who hadn't made as much as me, and I've dated girls who, it's so funny. Like I've started in relationships where in the beginning, the girl was making more, and now I'm making more, and then the girl making more, and now I'm making more. Like it's
that's dope.
I've been
that's dope.
And those type of relationships. I would even say right now that's the type of relationship, man. I feel like that's been like the finances for me, like from a girl, I've never really cared about. However, I have some family members, close family members, like they are not going for the woman cannot make more money than them.
That's wild.
They tie their masculinity into that.
That's wild.
She don't need to be career focused. I'm gonna pay all the bills. I want to control everything she got going on, because again, it goes back to that controlling aspect of it. If I'm in control, where can she go? No matter what I do, where can she go? And that's where it's like I don't want to control nobody.
Nope.
I want you to do your own thing, and I look at it as a team aspect when I'm looking at it.
100%. And this kind of divulged into a completely different kind of conversation that I wasn't expecting it was going to go. Hope we didn't offend anybody, but
that's
if
how it
we
goes
did,
on
feel
this
free
show,
to hit us
right?
up. Yeah, feel free to hit us up, and we try to be very, again, genuine and intentional with the words that we choose and use. But this is, we don't edit this like crazy. Like what you hear is what you hear. And so instead, if we say something off, by all means,
please
we'll hold ourselves accountable.
Get at us in the comments.
But we never try to do that. But yeah, I mean, like, look, it just comes down to, I do think what what this generation does have right is that they do believe in the equality of it.
Do you feel that though?
I feel like they do. I feel like a lot of kids do nowadays. I feel like it's much more, do what you got to do. Like it ain't like that. But it sounds like maybe you're hearing differently.
Well, I just feel like I see so many of the TikToks where it's like, where women are, we're going to say, where women have been like, I'm not going 50-50.
No, I see what you're saying. But you're talking about this young generation?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that comes like a lot from our generation.
No,
To be honest with you.
this generation is like they're on the I'm not going 50-50. It sounds crazy. My mom never had to pay for something. You know, not this is not my
That's a
I
good
came
point.
from
That's a good point.
two parent working home. But like my mom never had to pay for anything. My dad took care of everything. And that's how I see a man being is like he's supposed to take care of everything, and the woman ain't supposed to work. She's supposed to sit at home and take care of the house. That type of old school.
That's a good point. I see that, and I don't have social media, so forgive me, but it's not like it's been not that long since I've had social media, so I don't think things have changed that much, although they might have in like 2 years. But like, I did see that a lot from like people who are trying to be influencers, right? Guys and girls.
Yeah,
that
what's
are
reality
like,
and what's on.
What is it like? Really, like the 2% that are out there, you know, check out my booty pump video, and then they're like, but I'm not gonna pay for shit. Like, I don't really classify that as all the young,
that's not the
smart, intelligent people that are growing up necessarily. But I could be wrong. You know, I think there is going to be more of that now because they have the attention, they have the platform, and they might reach out to a lot of people that might think that. So possibly,
yeah, it's like you're saying, like the megaphone, like they're making the most noise, but they're not representing the majority of the individuals.
A buddy of mine always tells me this too, which I find great. He was like, man, every village used to have a village fool, and everybody knew the village fool. Everyone was like, that's the village fool. He or she is just talking dumb shit out of their mouth, but it wasn't a problem because
they're right there.
They're right there in the village. There's no microphone. Now every village's fool is on fucking Instagram and social media.
Creating a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Arkansas is in village fool. Rhode Island's village fool.
And now
we out here. But like, it's true if you think about it. So I think sometimes the smallest minority can be the loudest.
Absolutely.
You know?
They're banging their, I think people that go about doing things the right way don't have time to jump. And that's been one thing. They're not on social media. Like real people aren't on social media following these things and listening, taking the advice of somebody that doesn't know them, don't care about them, and only need a like or a subscribe to monetize their view. That's how they look at it sometimes.
Correct. It's about monetization. And that's why I'm always weary about even the people that I used to follow, even people that have really good content, that have a really good message. There's still something that's weary about me because I'm like, yeah, you have a positive message and I can take that for face value, but like, there's still something about you that is doing things for money and is doing things for the click, because that somehow gets you high. And then I noticed it on a lot of different celebrities that people that I had followed before I deleted it, where I was like, wow, these people, like, they say such great, a lot of like meditation people too, a lot of like, kindness people that I love following because it's a feel good thing. But then when something major event happened that not needed them, but like you would think they would speak on, silent. And it made me realize, I was like, oh, because if you say something, you're gonna some sponsorships are you're gonna lose some money. And so I'm like, are you actually standing on business? Was anything that you were saying actually real, or are you just doing this for the likes and the clicks? So I'm very wary of those motherfuckers, though.
All right, let's make sure, like, down the road we don't become them.
Yeah, and that was a conversation Herb and I had when we started this topic, this podcast. I was like, hey, let's just make sure we're on the same page. We're doing this because we want to just talk.
Yes.
We're not trying to sell out.
Not yet.
But no, we don't have enough subscribers.
But no, you're absolutely right there. Like, we definitely want to come. Obviously we're not making any money, but we're not starting a podcast with the mindset of like, oh, this is going to be a money maker. If that ever happened, like,
it'd be great.
It'll be great, awesome. But really, we just want to come and really just have conversations. I feel like,
yeah, man, and we have a lot to say, and you don't need to care about what we say, and you can say we're fucking stupid, and it's like, cool, like, it is what it is. Like, we just have a lot to say. And anyway, not to get too much off topic, because the whole thing was about the whole dating thing, and obviously dating has changed, and I think I expressed like why I think some of it is negative, because it's all behind a screen and it's all very impersonal, and we're losing that connection. And I do think there are some positives, because you do have the ability. Like, for example, I think this is a good example. Do you believe in the idea that you only have one soulmate?
No,
I don't either. I think you have multiple soulmates. The problem is like, all right, what if I had one soulmate? What if my one soulmate is in Seoul, Korea? Mm-hmm. Like, how the fuck am I ever going to find that person? Or like, what if my 5? I think you have 7 or 8, to be honest with you. But like, are they going to be next to me? Like, what are the odds that they're going to be right in my state, in my city, and then I'm going to find them? Yeah. I think this online dating stuff opens it up for that more.
Absolutely.
And it gives you the opportunity to meet more interesting people that align with your goals, your values, and your morals. And I think that could be a really good thing, because I know some really positive and beautiful marriages and relationships that have sprung from meeting people online as opposed to in person, because you're able to filter what you're looking for a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so I do think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think like, it's just a much larger pool.
Yeah.
When it comes to the soulmates, I feel like that's not something that is even like 5 soulmates. I don't think it's like 5 soulmates, or you have a finite number of soulmates mates born. I think it's just more so it's something that you evolve. Like I think that there's people that have traits, qualities that appeal to you, and likewise that would be magnetic. But I think for the soulmate aspect of it, I think that's something that you would just have to evolve. I know people like, you get married, you see the person, and y'all go and live a healthy or have a long, relationship. You would look at it like, oh, this is love at first sight, that type of thing right there. I feel like that's just being able to. That's a revisionist history. That's just, it's easy to look back on that and be like, okay, yeah, that's how that happened. Where I feel like if that person wasn't there and you had to go meet someone else at 23, you would have did that as well.
You would have been fine
and been happy as well.
You would have been fine.
Yeah, you don't know it.
No, that's a very, very valid point, and I find that very interesting to bring that up, because I do think a lot of people listen, culture, okay, whether it be TV culture, movie culture, everything, they fetishize romance. And they fetishize what it is to be in a relationship. So let's talk real talk. Like, when you grow up thinking, I'm going to find the love of my life. It's going to be love at first sight. We're going to talk. We're going to get married. And then we're going to be married happily ever after. But they never go into what happens once you get married. Or what happens when you actually really get into a relationship. Any movie, anything like that. They don't talk about the fights. They don't talk about the disagreements. They don't talk about the fact that
happily ever after.
Yeah, it's all it is happily. And that's what you're led to believe. And this is why, in my opinion, a lot of relationships and marriages don't end up working, or people are miserable or just very complacent in their relationships because they think, well, this is happily ever after. This is how it's got to be. And you don't get taught from a young age how to be in a relationship, how to communicate, how to talk, how to go through things and mediate and compromise and do all these things. And it's fucking insane because, again, now I'm here at 39, having been through various relationships, and it's like, well, I didn't fucking know that. Like, this is, I should have probably known this, but like nobody teaches you. And it's super interesting because I think it leads kind of to this question of like, now that I know that, I often question, is having a partner a requirement moving forward? And I bring this up because you were even talking about a little earlier how partnership and being with someone can be a beautiful thing. And I don't disagree with that. I am still on board with that. But is it really a requirement, knowing what we know now? Understanding what we understand now, and knowing that, like, dude, shit's hard. Relationships are fucking hard. Absolutely. Marriages are fucking hard.
Absolutely. I don't
know. What are your thoughts?
I think that I will say I'm a firm believer in that, 2 is greater than 1 when it's healthy 2.
My man, you going out on a limb now saying 2 is greater than 1. Your math skills are pretty spot on, brother.
Hey, 3s beat 2s. That's a whole other inside joke that I won't even go into. But and what I mean to say by that is that when you I think that it's not required. However, it's beneficial if you have a healthy one, because I think, again, 2 great people are gonna have a advantage over one person, that's even if they're doing great. And for instance, for me, dating someone and we're both, doing well, financially, we're both, kind of aligned with each other socially, and a lot of things that we go in. I feel like this helps us as a team, be able to like accomplish more things. We can travel. We can, we can afford to, I'm looking at homes and stuff, looking at houses, things like that. Like, have that I wouldn't have been able to do by myself.
Sure.
I'm able to do those things because I have a partner, because I have a girl, So I feel like that's where it's beneficial, that as long as it's 2 people that are happy, healthy, and in a healthy relationship. If you have 2 people and they don't like each other, it's gonna that more adverse of an effect versus if it's just one person who was even being bad. So I think it just depends on the type of relationship. As long as it's a healthy one, then I think there's more power into it than it is.
So I got a question to you, because this is a very good point, and it's on what you just said, having a happy, healthy relationship, because happy and healthy is subjective to people. It can be subjective. You would think not, but it can be subjective. And I say this because I have my own example of this, but like, what is the definition of happy and healthy for you? Because it might not be the same for someone else. And then I'll explain to you why after I hear your answer about why I asked that question.
Yeah, peace and respect.
Peace and respect.
Okay. I value peace and I value respect.
Okay.
If I'm in a peaceful relationship and a respectful relationship, we can work on all.
What does peaceful exactly mean?
And peaceful mean like, I can't be with somebody that is really negative. Like I can't date someone that is pessimistic. I'm a very optimistic person. And I understand, like, I'm not saying that if you're in an unhealthy relationship and people keep doing bad things for you, there's no reason for you to be optimistic about that.
Sure.
Like I'm not saying that. So what I'm saying just from as a personality trait is that when we're facing challenges, I need to be with someone that sees the opportunity to make a solution as opposed to an object that's insolvable. So I think that's where I look at as far as like I say, like the peace.
We can get through this.
Yeah. Yes.
Someone that has that attitude, we're going to get through this. If something bad happens, whatever, however big and small, you don't want someone that's going to crumble under the pressure and automatically be like, no, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And that's when I say, when I'm looking at what happiness is, I guess, in a relationship with me. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, is like peace and respect.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Because I would think peaceful, but I think it does fall into this. But like for me, peaceful is more of like our disagreements don't turn into crazy fights or arguments.
Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, I can't do that. We can have a disagreement.
We can have a disagreement.
I'm not with the name calling type thing. Like I see these. I've never put my hands on a woman. I'll never do that. My dad did not believe in that type of stuff, and he always preached that. So I would never want. I couldn't get, if I was ever in a relationship where I thought that we got to that point where I need to, quote unquote, put my hands on a girl, then I would never. That would be an easy run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And again, the reason why this question sprung up was because I was in a relationship several years ago where I was very unhappy, and I didn't think it was a healthy relationship at all. You were around me during this time, and I would bring up topics to her about like, hey, here's how I feel about X, Y, Z, and this is how it's making me feel. Can we work on this? And I would always get the constant, yeah, we can do this. And then there'd be times where I'd be like, hey, like, we're not in a good place. And she would be very shocked because she'd be like, what do you mean we're not in a good place? She's like, we don't hit each other. We don't call each other names. We don't cheat on each other. Like, we're great. And I'm like, babe, that is baseline.
Yeah, okay.
That is baseline. And so to her, we were in a happy, healthy relationship.
Yes.
To me, we were not in a happy, we were in a very toxic relationship. There was a lot of passive aggressiveness. There was a lot of deceiving. But her experience was very different before in relationships. So that's why I asked that question. Like, what does happy, healthy actually mean? Because some people might think that's happy, healthy because they don't know any better.
Yes.
Whereas, and I'm like, no, that's like baseline, not to hit each other, not to name call each other, not to cheat on each other. That's just very baseline. Absolutely. So that's why I was asking that question.
Okay. I see that. That makes sense. I was going to ask you this. In those types of relationships, did you find yourself, I won't say compromise, but did you find yourself almost getting to situations where you were starting to have traits of that person, like where you did handle arguments not as calmly as you normally would, but like you started to kind of mirroring the personality of the person that you were with?
Yes, 100%. Because it was more of a defense mechanism, I would say, to try to protect myself. But like, yeah, and I think that's when I started seeing that and feeling that, when I was just like, I got to go. Like, I can't do this because it's changing me.
Yep.
And I don't want it to change me that badly, that severely, where the damage is irrecoverable and like, it's going to fuck everything up moving forward. And so like, yeah, that was just one of those very interesting things where it's like, man, people really do view happy and healthy just like completely differently. Now, with that said, going back originally to the whole point, because I went off on this question about the happy, healthy thing. I think we were talking about,
is it required?
Is it required? And when I was younger, I thought it was required. And maybe not required. Maybe required is too strong of a word, but like, I just thought that's what it was. That's what life is.
Okay.
As I've gotten older, obviously pushing 40, I've kind of come to terms with being okay with being alone. Because I do strongly believe that you can still have a sense of community. You can still have human connection without having a partner. Now, however, I would like a partner, a lifelong partner, 100%, because of everything you said. I think I want to say makes life easier, but it adds to your life.
I agree. Sharing the experiences.
Sharing just adds to your life. And so to your point, if it's a happy, healthy, in the way we've defined it, healthy where it's communicative, open communication.
I agree with
you
that.
both know where you're coming from. You both accept each other for who each one is, without excusing bad behavior, toxic behavior, anything like that, but excusing the fact that we're humans and we're going to make a mistake or two here, and that's okay, and stuff like that. Like that to me is super happy and healthy. And so I do think it's beneficial to help get you ahead in life. Is it required? No. You can live a very happy, healthy, successful, content life not having a partner, but you need human connection for that to happen. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a partner, but it's got to be friendship. It's got to be community. It's got to be something. Your social health is so important, and a partner can add to your social health. I'd argue, and statistics say, based off data and research, is you've got your mental health, your physical health, and your social health. And statistically speaking, the ones who live longer have the healthiest social health out of anybody else. And that can include a partner that they've been with. That can include friends. Yeah. But in a lot of instances, it does include a partner.
Yeah. Got you. Now, let me ask you this question. I know you mentioned that you don't necessarily need that. Just like you could be alone and not be lonely.
Correct.
But let me ask you this, like, as someone, and you're kind of in the field right now, like, do you have those moments of feeling lonely now, or when you're in this, or?
Yes. As I've gotten older, I've had a lot more moments of feeling lonely. And when I say older, probably the past year, a lot more moments of being lonely. For like 4 years, though, 5 years, like I was chilling. Like nothing bothered me. I enjoyed being by myself. I didn't feel lonely. I mean, you can even ask some of our friends that, because we always used to hang out. And then all of a sudden I kind of dropped off the face of the earth, and they were like, yo, what's good? Are you okay? It was a lot of tough conversations that I had to have. Like, yo, I'm good. Don't worry about me. Like, I'm fine. But like, I just like recluded back, and I think it was at a time I needed, because I was very extroverted. We were very out there, bro. Like I was out there all the time.
Was that something? I won't say that was like putting on a persona, but do you feel like you were overdoing it? Or I know with last episode we kind of spoke about imposter syndrome. Do you feel like there was like some levels of that trying to?
No, I just think I started appreciating my alone time. That's really what it came down to. I was like, I'm a fan of this. Is not all you are, but you always have been. Yeah. You were very extroverted, but like you need to recharge on your own. You're also a very introverted extrovert. You're an extrovert when you need to be, but like you've always been like, I need to, my battery recharges by myself, like literally in a dark room by myself if I have to be. Yeah, and we've known that. But yeah, I think I started following into that where I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy being by myself and like like doing this. But like now I'm like regressing. Now I'm like, oh, you know what? It would be nice. It's nice to maybe hang out with more people and get my ass out there and go talk more and maybe even have a partner. And I've had 2 partners in the past 5 years. Like I have. And those didn't work out for my own personal reasons, for growth that I still need to do within myself. Which I'm working on. And, I think we've talked about this before. I go to therapy, and like it's stuff that I'm very self-aware of. But yeah, like I said, like at the end of the day, I think it comes down to, my opinion is I don't think a partner is required, but I think a partner goes a long way if you can find the right one. And I think where a lot of people do it wrong is they go, a partner's required, or I really, really, really want a partner.
I got to find someone,
and they panic, and then they go find someone, the clearest thing. And what people need to realize is that no matter how much you have in common with someone, you're still bringing a completely different person into your world. And that person is bringing a completely different person into their world. And if you think that it's going to be all butterflies and freaking flowers and rainbows, that is not the case. And this is why I go back to what culture throws on us that makes you think that happily ever after is happily ever after. And it's like, they don't talk about the fact that, maybe your partner's flatulent and farts a lot. I'm just saying it. I got to figure out what I mean. So,
that's so funny.
You know what I mean? But I mean, that's a small thing that's funny. But like, maybe that is a thing. Like, you don't.
That would be a big ass deal in my relationship. That would not fly. I promise you. It's something like that. It's like something so small. So when you talk about like bringing personality,
might be a deal breaker for you.
That is absolutely
deal breaker for that. So it could be a deal breaker for people. Like, that's my point. But like, you're not going to see that in the first 6 months, maybe a year. How does a person handle financial hardship? Absolutely. How does a person handle if someone passes away in their family?
Absolutely.
Like, people are so willy-nilly to jump into relationships, or marriage is even worse.
Yes.
Absolutely. And to me, that's what's wild. And to me, that's what's wrong with a lot of things, because again, and this is just a common theme through all of our podcasts, all of our episodes, is that people are playing keeping up with the Joneses too much. Oh, this person got married. Oh, I got to get married. oh, this person got in a relationship, I got in a relationship, they moved in with their partner, I got to get married, and I got to have a kids. And it's like, without actually thinking, like, is this right for me? Is this really what I want? Am I ready for this? Have I done the work on myself to bring this partner in? Go ahead.
And you're basing, you're making that assumption that someone else's relationship off of an image on social media, or what they're portraying on social media,
or what they tell you.
Yeah, right. And we understanding, like, as nowadays, like, that couldn't be either farther from the truth. What people putting out there aren't their realities, aren't their real life. And that's just, like, part of the society that we're a part of now, like living in a culture with social media. That's one of the things that one of the obstacles, one of the things you have to navigate and look at, is that people are, like, saying, keeping up with the Joneses, and they're basing it on something that's false. It's not even reality. You're not even keeping up with something that's, the thing you're trying to keep up with isn't even real for the people that you're trying to keep up with it. So I think that those things, with, as far as, like, dating and stuff, like, with the culture, like, I think those things are what people are experiencing, and they looking at as far as false. What they're saying online is false, and trying to keep up with something that's a false narrative, I would say. And that's definitely detrimental when it comes to, like, dating and how somebody may go about trying to decide whether or not they need a partner, or what they're looking for in a partner, or are they in a good place to even take on a partner? Like, as you mentioned, self-awareness, and I think we spoke about that a couple of episodes ago, is like, are you even in a place to be able to accept, the partner that's quote unquote your soulmate, or that's meant for you at the moment? I think that's something that we all have to, if you're out there, to evaluate that, are you in a place? And even in a relationship like myself, it's something you have to constantly reevaluate too. Like, am I evolving? Am I still being a good person in this relationship? Is this relationship evolving? Is it going in the direction that, in a direction that we both wanted to go? Are we both steering the boat in the same direction, or are we fighting against the tide with each other? So I think that those are all things that you have to consider whenever you're trying to decide whether or not, you need a partner, or if you want a partner, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's huge. That's a 100%, like, so valid with all of that you're saying, because how do I say it? Like, yeah, it's this idea that that everything is easy, and I think it's just a problem with society in general, is that we're always looking for the easy button, and we always think that when we get to this point, it'll be easy from here. So like, when we find this person that gives me these butterflies, like, it's gonna be great and easy from there, and we don't really take the time to understand, like, how can I actually make this work? How can I actually understand this person, their wants, their needs? How can they understand my wants, their needs? And I think it really comes down to it, really knowing who you are.
Absolutely.
And accepting yourself.
Oh, all right, absolutely. And I will ask you this question because it's something that kind of popped in my mind. Like, we both come from 2-parent homes.
Yep.
And there's definitely times within my, growing up in my parents' relationship where it was not no damn flowers and rainbows. It was quite the opposite.
Correct.
And seeing that, and do you feel like that has some type, like, being that you went through, you see your parents' relationship, how do you feel like that's had an impact on when you're looking for a soulmate, and where you're dating, and when you're deciding whether or not you're going to go through, like, a trial and tribulation with a relationship?
My parents, similar to yours, it was definitely not all rainbows, and, like,
and I think anybody that's been in long relationships would agree with that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I saw some troubling times when I was younger. But, like, they lasted it, and they navigated it. And to be honest with you, they're happiest that they've ever been together now. Yeah. And so that to me is encouraging. And for a lack of a better word, heartwarming, to be like, all right, like, even through, like, the shit that I seen them go through, like the lowest of the lows together, like, they about to get divorced.
Yep. Yes.
And they roughed it out. Like, that's awesome. But I feel like they grew to love each other so intensely. Where that's not why they got married to begin with. Yep. I think they were really in like with each other. To be honest with you, they got married because my mom got pregnant with me, and my mom's mom was like, "You gotta marry my daughter." The fuck you think this is?
Little Derek's coming.
Yeah, what the hell? What worked to my dad's benefit? He got a citizenship because of it. But, like, my dad was like, "Nah, I'm trying to be out here partying now." Hell no, you ain't. You marrying my daughter, and especially if you living with her. My
now you see why Derek is the way he is now.
My dad was like, "Okay," did what he had to do, right? Mm-hmm. So it was very much they grew to love each other. And also, I think my parents' situation is a little unique. I have a younger sister who passed away, who was born very sick and had, and I think that really glued them together for life. Going through that type of experience of losing a daughter, not just the loss, but everything they went through for her lifetime.
Yes.
In and out of hospitals and all that. I think that was just the glue that brought them together for life.
I think that's so funny you say that, because I think you'll see, and I don't know, I don't want to get it like speak out of turn, but I think there's a percentage of people who experience the loss of a child separates them, because
Really,
they don't. It's not necessarily a blame game per se, but they both take on a certain responsibility of, if I would have did, depending on the situation, if I would have did this, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Or, in the case of, children born with disabilities, I've seen, someone speaking about, like, if you're previously a partier and then you have a child that maybe has some type of disability, one side may blame the other side, being like, man, if you didn't live that type of life, you're the one that did this. So I've seen a lot of, there's a lot of research that goes out there that shows that, like, the death of a child really separates a relationship, and in your experience, it kind of brought your parents together, and that's so I think that's it's an unfortunate situation, but I think there's a great silver line in the situation that that it kept your parents together.
Yeah, and I also think it also depends on, like, how was that loss? Like, was it a sudden loss? You said if it was sick, maybe, but like my sister was sick, so they had no choice but to work together, because it was a lot of work.
Absolutely.
They had to work together.
Yeah.
No matter, in the middle of the worst, it was in that middle of that time, and they had to figure it out because they had the sick daughter and all that stuff. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But, at the end of the day, maybe it was that they were just meant to be together. Like, who knows? Like, it is what it is. But, like, again, going back to your actual original question, it does encourage me that you can be with someone and love someone even harder on year 43. I think my parents are on 44 or something like that.
Okay.
Like, even harder than you did than the days you met them. And that is super encouraging. And would I like that? Yeah, I would like that. But again, for everyone out there, my advice is, if you don't find a partner, it's okay. You are loved. You are wanted. You are a valuable person. Like, don't base your whole life off of, I've got to find a partner. I've got to find a partner, because if you don't, I'm not saying when, because that's terrible. That's not what I'm, but if you don't, you are going to be so distraught, and you are more than that. And so please don't think that way, because there's a lot of people that I know think that way, and they base everything on it, and they try to force things. And this is the other thing that I wanted to talk about, is that I think so many times, and this is what I've learned since growing up, when I was younger, and so many people nowadays, whenever they meet someone, they try to be someone, maybe not so much that they're not, although a lot of people do that, but like, try to be the best version of themselves, clean, blah, 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 blah.
And that's not what they really are.
And that's not really reality. And that really bothers me, because I used to do that too. Used to try to, I got to dress my best all the time. I'm not saying you don't take care of yourself. Like, it's a completely different thing. But like, nowadays it's like, what I try to, message if I'm dating anyone or anything like that is like, yo, just be yourself.
Yeah.
I want you to be who you are. Like, if something comes up in your head and you want to ask me, like, ask it. Who cares if someone in the past was like, oh, that's too forward? Like, let's be who you are, and allow me to let you know if that's something that I'm into or not, because I want to be who I am too. And I want to be able to portray that. Now, there's obviously a fine line, right? Obviously, if you're a fucking creep, or if like you can't, like, there's obviously some social norms that you can't pass. But like, I think we know what I mean when I say just like be who you are. People either hold themselves back a little bit too much, or they do the extra mile that's not really them. When in reality, you're gonna get found out. Either today, might as well do it today, or it's going to be 4 years down the line, or whatever, 6 months down the line. Like, you're going to get got. And when maybe not got to the road, but you're going to be, the real you is going to come out. And so don't try to hide it so much. Like, just be your natural self that makes you happy. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I was going to say, well, do you think that people working in sales, I think the analogy that that comes to mind is that, if you're not hitting your quota, and it's getting towards the end of the quarter, you start to white knuckle it and squeeze really tight. And instead of like, you're trying to force sales, and you go into, you don't have the, you go into a discovery call, and you're trying to make the sale on a discovery call. And you haven't even figured out what the problem. Like, I feel like maybe that's what situation. Do you feel like people get it, like, are getting up in our age, they haven't found someone, and they're starting to like white knuckle it, and like the next person that comes through has to be the one, and they trying to make this person. And I think that's what happened.
I think that happens all the time. I've seen it happen. It's just, it's a fine line. But I think that if you're gonna find a person, I'm not gonna say because we've established that we both don't believe in like that soulmate, but a person that is gonna be a good partner for you, and you'll be a good partner for them. You got to be your true, authentic, genuine self.
And allow that person
to come into your life. Keep living your life. Keep going out. I'm not saying don't go out. Like, I'm not saying like wait at your couch and not go out and try to meet someone. That's not what I mean. You got to get yourself out there. But like, don't have expectations of I'm going to meet my secret someone. Both men and women when I go out tonight or when I go to this. Be yourself. I promise you something beautiful is going to come along.
I agree. I think that's the way the universe works. I think there is like, as long as you're putting out, I do believe that like the universe, if you're putting out that positivity and you're a good person, like I do feel like if that's what you're seeking, if that's what your end goal is, you will find that. You will find a partner if that's what you want. But also being comfortable knowing that you don't have to find a partner, and being alone doesn't necessarily mean that you're lonely. And that's okay as well. So I think it's just, again, like being able to accept it yourself. Now I will say, our saying on being single is, fun days, lonely nights. That's the single life. So basically what I'm saying is, it's all fun and games when you're single, and then at night you go home, you're like, I'm feeling a little alone here. So, but
I sleep with Choco, so I'm good. And we chilling. I'm out here good.
Perfect. Well, there I think that definitely wraps up. Like we hit on some pretty hard hitting topics when we start thinking about relationships and things like that. And I definitely look forward to like having more conversations on this and get to know, letting our fans get to know us and just kind of seeing what our mindset is, and also leave like comments, kind of some feedback on when it comes to dating, how it was for you back in the day versus how it is now, and then also do you feel like partners required as far as today's society and culture?
And I think this we've touched on a couple of things, but like there's so much more to talk on when it talks to relationships and dating, and even more of our experiences. So something tells me we're going to have a part 2 about dating and relationships, and something tells me that the people are going to want to know more. So like Herb said, drop the comments if you want to know a little bit more, even about us personally. We'll reveal what we feel comfortable revealing. But I do have a feeling there's going to be there's going to be a part 2 about this. So we'll wrap up this one right here. But obviously with every episode, we like to wrap up with a fun fact or something we learned since the last time. And Herb, I had kicked it off to you last time, so I'll start off this time.
Let me hear what you got.
And I think this is a really good one because it falls in line with something you also said too. When we were thinking about it, I was like, I've got a good one that you may not know, but you were talking about like the expectations of what women want of men these days. When you were like, they want someone with money and blah blah. And height came up.
Yep.
So let's talk about height.
Okay, I'm listening.
Let's talk about height.
All right.
Do you know what the percentage of the male population in the United States is that's 6 foot or above?
That's over 6 feet?
That's 6 foot or above.
I'm going to take a wild guess here. 12%. I don't know. That's what came to my mind.
Great guess. 14.9%.
Oh, shit. Okay.
14.9%. Okay.
All right.
Next one. What percentage are 6'2" or above? Mind you, ladies, I'm 6'2".
Hey, my boy. Hey, humble brag. 6'2" and above. So we started at 15 essentially, and now we're going to 6'2" and above. Ooh, I mean, I guess maybe 10%?
3.9%. 4% of men in the United States are 6'2" above. Isn't that like, when I saw that statistic, bro, that shit blew my mind.
That's assuming that if you walked into a bar, any random bar here in Austin, there was 100 men there. You're telling me only 4 of them would be over 6'2"?
Only 4 of them would be over 6'2".
That seems so crazy.
That's
I feel like that would
crazy.
be I thought, maybe 15.
3.9%, bro. Look it up.
So you telling me all these girls out here that's trying to get somebody that's 6'2" and above,
they're choosing for 4%. They're choosing for 4%. That's all I'm saying. Hey, I fall within that 4%. That's all I'm saying. Herb, how tall are you?
6 foot. So I ain't no short king. Ain't no short kings out here. But to the short kings out there,
hey, stay strong. Because it's not about we talked about earlier. It's about if you're a kind person, you have a good personality.
That's fair enough. All right, man. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, bro. You learn something. I'm telling you, that's a good one too.
Learn something every day. Well, mine is again, we always Certainly, we always talk about our love for astronomy and things like that. I think this one, to me, is just more so about the human body. Did you know that if you were to, there's enough DNA in your body to reach from Earth to the sun and to Pluto and back multiple times? And what I'm saying is this. So the distance between the sun to Pluto is about 3.6 billion miles.
Oh,
If you were to unwind your DNA and you were to lay it out and line it up, basically,
yeah.
it would cover about 46 billion miles.
Holy shit! So it would be 46 divided by 3. It would go back and forth from here to the sun
That many times. The Earth to Pluto about
22 times.
Yeah, well, the Earth to Pluto is about 6 billion miles. Let's say that. I'm sorry. Sun to Pluto about 6 billion miles. So,
okay.
So you can go about
7 times.
7 times.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
That's all of our DNA just rolled out in the human body.
In a human body.
Oh fuck.
Like that was just like, and we talk about the distances, and we're talking about billions of miles of DNA in us. Is that's what blowing my mind. Like, you have 1 billion miles worth of DNA inside of you. That's crazy.
Well, that's how small DNA is, right? That's how it's when we start talking about freaking the quantum.
Yes,
that's a whole nother fucking conversation that blows my mind, and I fucking love it. But hey, man, that was some interesting stuff. Everyone, we appreciate y'all joining us today.
Thank you. Another episode.
Yeah, we dating. Like we said, hit us up. Let us know. Herb, always a pleasure, my guy.
We did it again.
All right, broski. Holla.